Thank you for spending time with them. As president, what specific strategies would you implement to promote diversity and inclusion in leadership roles within both public and private sectors? How do you plan to support the advancement of underrepresented groups, including women, in these areas?
So I'll be very honest with you. I have a feeling I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear on this one.
All right, folks. Well, on Wednesday, Vivek Ramaswamy participated in a CNN town hall. So obviously going into hostile territory there and answering hard questions. Now, I'll be totally honest. I did not watch it, but I did see clips of it on the internet. I'm sorry, that is such a Gen Z thing to say, but it's true. What do you want me to say? It's true. I couldn't find the full replay anywhere, but we are today going to be reacting to some of the most viral and newsworthy moments from this CNN town hall. So without further ado, I mean, let's get into that. And we're going to start with the one I think maybe most people have seen more than any of these other ones, where Vivek is grilled by the CNN host regarding his comments he made about January 6th and alleging that it was a quote unquote inside job. And what he actually means there is not that it was all 100% orchestrated, but rather that, you know, there's a case to be made. There may have been some federal agents provoking what happened, instigating whatever it is on the 6th. He said that at the debate, for those of you who missed it. And understandably, as you could predict, right, CNN has been trying to torch him for this. They were attacking him the night of the debate. They're still trying to grill home. How could you say that about Jan 6th? And props to Vivek Ramaswamy for this, truly, because a lot of candidates, knowing they're taking a little bit of heat, taking some criticism, could easily just back down and just walk back what they were saying. But instead, he doubles down, once again defends the point he was making. And this is the first clip, and we'll react to it here. And it's pretty masterful, to say the least. All right, let's take a listen here.
So let me ask you about something that you said at the debate last week. You used the phrase inside job to describe what happened on January 6th. The next day...
Why is he standing like that? He's gathering his chakra. Okay, stupid joke.
Capitol rioter Alan Hostetter highlighted your comments at his sentencing. He is going to prison for 11 years. Hostetter threatened members of Congress. He brought a hatchet, knives, pepper spray, stun batons, tactical gear to the U.S. Capitol. Are you concerned that a convicted felon like that is now promoting your comments in court?
So here's my concern, Abby. And I want to tell you guys where I'm at. If you had told me, it's close to 3 years ago that January 6, 2021 happened. If you had told me 3 years ago, back when I was a biotech CEO, not steeped in this world, I was just consuming passive media, but was focused on my world of developing medicines. If you had told me that January 6 was in any way an inside job, the subject of government entrapment, I would have told you that was crazy talk. Fringe conspiracy theory nonsense. I can tell you now, having gone somewhat deep in this, it's not. I mean, the reality is this. We do have a government, first of all, we have to acknowledge, that has lied to us systematically over the last several years about the origin of COVID-19, about the Hunter Biden laptop that we were told was false by 51 CIA experts and otherwise before we now know that it was true. You can go straight down the list, the Trump-Russia disinformation collusion hoax, all of it. Now,
and look, here's the thing about January 6th. I'm not going to comment on that whole thing extensively. I'm not going to pretend to know anything about it. But what I will say is that the allegation that Vivek is making, the claim he's making, is certainly not without precedent in recent American history. Just think of the Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping plot, right? This stuff absolutely happens. Again, that's all I'm saying. I'm just saying it does happen. Okay.
Now we come to January 6th. The reality is we know that there were federal law enforcement agents in that field. We don't know how many. I think it's shameful. Yes. If I may finish just answering.
Well, let me I'm going to go ahead and interrupt you here because you're
I know
saying that there
establishment doesn't approve of this message. I know
that there were federal agents.
We should be able to talk about this.
You're saying that there were federal agents.
This is important to talk about.
You are saying there were federal agents in the crowd on January 6th.
Yep.
There is no evidence that there were federal agents in the crowd on January 6th.
So why, before Congress, when pressed on what the number was, they didn't say there were none? They just couldn't say how many there were.
So you're saying that that you have not seen evidence.
If they can't tell you the number, that means there was a number. Because if there was none, then there was none. It's pretty simple.
Any evidence
So
that
we've
there
seen
were,
multiple.
and so you
we've seen
assume that there
multiple
were.
informants suggesting that they were. We know people were FBI informants who were asked.
Is there any evidence?
May I just finish this, and you can come back and question me.
Let me clarify.
I know this is very uncomfortable for you.
I'm going to clarify my question.
I know this is an uncomfortable issue for many people, but we have to do the truth here.
I'm going to clarify my question because I want to make sure that you understand what I'm asking.
I understand this deeply. And I told
Here's another case of the CNN anchor thinking it's their town hall and not the candidate's town hall.
I was there 3 years
Caitlin
ago.
Collins moment.
Where is the evidence?
Yes.
Where is the evidence that the government had a plot?
Let's do this.
An inside job.
But no, I'm going to tell you what an inside job is, because I'm not
violence on January 6th.
I'm not going to let you put words in my mouth. I'm going to put my words in my mouth. And I'm going to tell you what I mean by that.
Where is the evidence that the government was involved in planning or executing January 6th?
So I'm going to give you hard facts. And if I may, Abby, I know this is going to be a little uncomfortable.
This is what they do. Do you notice that she asked the same question like 10 times? And then guess what they're going to do? Oh, you don't have time to answer because we got to go to commercial break. Not in this case necessarily, but that's what they do at some of these town halls, right? It's just, again, she's literally just repeating herself. And then next thing you know, oh, we're out of time, guys. Many such cases, by the way.
But we're gonna go through this, and you can push back on it after
the evidence.
And you can push back on that. And let's do this fairly. Why did they suppress footage of now what's been released? 200 hours of footage of shooting rubber bullets into that crowd, shooting tear gas into that crowd. You didn't see that before. You saw what the response was to that. Now you see footage coming out of actually rolling out the red carpet for Capitol Police allowing people in,
again,
right through the front door.
The vast majority of the footage
evidence should have been released before, Abby.
Mr. Ramaswamy, the vast majority of the footage shows police officers being overrun
and I want to talk about one more
by
case.
violent
this is really important.
rioters. That's
I'm going to give you some hard facts.
Of it shows.
So here's what entrapment is.
Cherry pick.
I'm not cherry picking. If I may finish, Abby. If I may finish, Abby. I'm not cherry picking.
Examples.
To the contrary. To the contrary.
You know who cherry picked? You know who cherry picked?
The government.
That is what happened.
The government cherry picked 12 hours of footage when there was 200 hours of footage. So cherry picking was the government.
100% true. Okay. And if you didn't really hear what was going on there, she was saying, well, there were violent people on January 6th, so you can't cherry pick. You can't cherry pick. And then Vivek said very masterfully, you know who cherry picked? The government. Because they only released a small amount of the January 6th footage, initially at least. And what we found when they released the whole thing is they just cherry picked the worst January 6th footage there was. Masterful. It's a shame you couldn't really hear it because she won't shut up. But true.
Not me. Release the whole thing. And let me just finish one thing too, because this is super important as a topic.
So I
think this is a civil libertarian issue of our time. Gretchen Whitmer's kidnapping. I want to be really clear on this because it's the same issue in the same FBI, same even part of the FBI. 3 people who were in an alleged plot to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer were acquitted at the end of trial because it was entrapment. That is, government agents put them up to do something they otherwise wouldn't have done. They gave them credit cards with spending limits of up to $5,000, encouraged them to buy munitions, plan something they weren't otherwise willing to plan. So much so, and I want people at home to know this, especially CNN viewers to know this, is that one of the jurors went to those defendants and apologized afterwards, gave him a hug, apologized, seeing what the government had put a poor guy up to who had to go to some Mexican restaurant across the street to get hot water. These people were exploited with credit cards up to $5,000, FBI agents putting them up to a kidnapping plot that we were told was true but was entrapment.
Which, by the way, should be totally illegal. I don't know why that's allowed. It's not the first case of the time and the FBI has done it. They do that pretty frequently, actually. But, you know, it's one thing to, like, as an intelligence agency meant to look out for crime, to monitor and see if people are going to commit crime. It's another thing to get in there and instigate and try to provoke people intentionally to try to commit a crime and then frame them for that. That should be totally illegal. And frankly, if FBI people do that, they're the ones who should be arrested. Because not only are you framing a person for that otherwise wasn't going to do the crime, but what happens if you don't actually stop them before they go through with it? What could end up happening, and what I would argue maybe has happened, just kidding, that's a joke, of course, is they go through with the crime, they go and kill or hurt other innocent Americans, and it's all for what? So the FBI can get more funding because, hey, Look, the world's really dangerous now, so we need more funding and more agents, guys. It's sick. It's evil. It's demented. Okay? The FBI, the CIA, none of those agencies should be allowed to do that stuff. But what do we know? I would never kill myself.
Same thing with the Capitol Police. People letting them in freely. Many of those people then being charged.
Ramaswamy, look,
the government cannot put you up to do something and then charge you for it. That's wrong.
I don't want to have to.
Wrong to the left or the right. I don't want to have to.
I don't want to have to interrupt you. I really don't. But I don't want you to mislead the audience here or at home.
I think they've been misled by the mainstream media.
So I think you basically get the point there on that clip. Want to transition now a little bit away from the J6 stuff. Here's another example of, like I said, one thing I do respect a lot about Vivek. I know people will say, oh, I don't really trust him. Look at his past ties or something like that. But you do have to give him credit for this. He's really one of the only Republican candidates in this cycle since he's announced as a candidate who's been consistent about stuff and isn't just throwing out things that people want to hear in the moment. And I think this is a prime example of that. So the girl you're about to see asked Vivek a very stupid question. It's like, what are you going to do to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion? Like, because apparently that's a question on the top of every Republican voter's mind. Does my candidate support DEI? But instead of like tiptoeing around the question or telling this individual voter in front of him what she wants to hear, instead, he just straight out says, well, here's how I feel. And he says, you're not going to like the answer. So take a listen. Again, this is Vivek responding to a question on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Take a listen.
She's a professor at Drake University who teaches in the College of Business and Education. She's a Republican from West Des Moines who is undecided. Claire?
Thank you, Abby. Thank you also for spending time with our students at Drake. As a professor, I think it's super important that we get that opportunity, so thank you for spending time with them. As president, what specific strategies would you implement to promote diversity and inclusion in leadership roles within both public and private sectors? How do you plan to support the advancement of underrepresented groups, including women, in these areas?
So again, is this woman really a Republican? I don't know. Okay, I have no idea. But anyways.
So I'll be very honest with you. I'm going to share with you Thomas Sowell quote that stuck with me. If you care about somebody, you tell them the truth, or at least what you believe. If you care about yourself, you tell them what they want to hear. And I have a feeling I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear on this one. So I think the diversity, equity, inclusion agenda has been abused. In the name of diversity, we have, at many of our universities, totally sacrificed diversity of thought. In the name of equity, we've perpetuated a lot of inequity and inequality of opportunity through affirmative action and otherwise. In the name of inclusion, we've created a new culture of exclusion where certain points of view aren't welcome. So especially in a university setting, what do I care about? Diversity of viewpoint. This is important, actually. I think diversity of viewpoint is part of what this country was built on. Well, the best way to foster diversity of viewpoint is to screen candidates for the diversity of their views, actually. Many look at the board members of many universities. You're going to go through their partisan affiliation. It's not 80-20. It's going to be like 90-10 in the other direction. That's completely at odds with the representation of this country. So do I value diversity of viewpoint? Absolutely. Do I think we're doing a good job of that? No, we're not. And it's not an accident. In the name of diversity, we've actually created a new culture of conformity. And so I think it's entirely possible to have a group of 10 people who look similar to one another who have different views. I think it's entirely possible to have a group of 10 people who look different from one another, or who look the same as one another but have different views, or look different from one another and have the same views. And so I think the best way to screen candidates for the diversity of their experiences is to actually ask them about the diversity of their experiences. And I think the use of these racial and gender quota systems, I think have actually created a new form of racism in the United States that otherwise would not have existed.
By the way, this is basically the answer every Republican candidate running for any office should give. But I have my doubts if that's the way it really is. I mean, you think if you asked Nikki Haley this question, she would say that? I don't know. She'd probably say, well, I'm a woman too, and we're women. So, we love being, I don't know, but it's true. The diversity of her high heels and the tactical nuclear warheads that she puts on her high heels. It's real.
It's sad to me. I mean, I've hired, not because I was thinking about it consciously, plenty of black women in different positions of authority in this campaign or other companies or whatever. And I can tell you, it saddens me when people look at somebody who I hired on the basis of merit and say that they only got that job because of their race or gender. That doesn't do anybody a favor. And so I think if we restore true meritocracy in this country and embrace true diversity of thought, chances are we're actually going to have a bunch of different shades of melanin and a range of genders in different positions. But let it be not the goal. Let it just be a byproduct of actually selecting for people who are the best person for the job, and especially in a university setting, diverse viewpoints as well. That's what I'll say.
And that's a good place for us to.
The concerned look on the CNN woman's face the whole time is pretty amusing. In all seriousness, though, I once again ask, is that professor really a Republican? And if she is a Republican, I think she kind of highlights what's wrong with a lot of the Republican Party. Because if she really is a Republican, again, if I'm assuming she's sincere and she said she's a business professor, then I'd most likely assume it's because of like tax cuts, right? She economically agrees with the conservatives. Okay, great. But is that all there is to this party? You know, we're liberal, not even liberal. We're far left on every social issue. Like, we don't fight for anything. We don't stand for anything. But, you know, I'm Republican because, you know, they give us lower taxes. This party should stand for a lot more than lower taxes. Okay, lower taxes are important. You know, I'm generally a pro-market guy. But to pretend like economics is the only problem facing this country, that's just not true. That's obviously not true. There's cultural rot. And by the way, if you really want to even take it from a truly capitalist perspective, diversity, equity, and inclusion, quote unquote, especially when it sacrifices merit, is not good for business. It's not good for the economy. It's not good for the profit and the bottom line, actually, because when you have incompetent people filling your positions and running your company because they were diversity hired, we know the end story there. So anyways, folks, with that said, that basically wraps it up. I mean, we do have one more clip. Should we react to it? You know what? Why not? We'll react to it. This is a shorter one here. And I only chose this because this is something I'm kind of oddly passionate about for no reason, because I just love talking about it. But here's Vivek Ramaswamy vowing to end birthright citizenship for the children of illegal immigrants by 2025 if elected, right? And the common response most people say is, well, that goes against the 14th Amendment, which is actually not true. If you even look at the original, you can go find these. I think Heritage Foundation has an article on them, but you can go look up the original authors in Congress of the 14th Amendment when they were debating about this were clearly saying the birthright citizenship thing does not apply to foreign nationals and the children of foreign nationals. They said that. The people who wrote the 14th Amendment said that. You can go research that for yourself. But here's Vivek explaining it in his own words.
You just said that you would end birthright citizenship
for the kids of illegal migrants, yes.
Immigrants. There are currently millions of such people, children, some of them adults. Would you retroactively strip them?
Great question, Abby. So I'm glad you asked that. Prospectively. So January 20th, 2025 forward, there is a concept in the law known as a reliance interest. If you've relied on the government, we're not going to be able to retroactively date that. But from January 20th, 2025 going forward, if I'm the president, if you're born in this country as the kid of an illegal immigrant, you will not enjoy birthright citizenship. And that's what the 14th Amendment says. Yeah. It says it only applies subject to the jurisdiction thereof. That's in the opening section of the 14th Amendment when it talks about birthright citizenship. So in the same way, and I want people to understand this because some people call this a controversial view. I don't think it needs to be. The kid of a Mexican diplomat who's here legally and he's born in the United States, that person doesn't enjoy birthright citizenship. Nobody contests that. Well, if the kid of a Mexican diplomat who's here legally does not enjoy birthright citizenship, neither does or should the kid of a Mexican or Venezuelan migrant who's here illegally.
100%. 100%. This idea that just because you are born on U.S. soil under any circumstances means that you're automatically a citizen, that's just not true. That's not what the 14th Amendment says. That's not real. And again, like I said, even in the original debates and like the congressional transcripts when they were discussing the 14th Amendment, they said this. They said it doesn't apply to foreign nationals. And by the way, people say, okay, well, where did the birthright citizenship thing come from? If I'm not mistaken, because I'm like, it's been a while since I've looked into this, but I'm pretty sure that's never something Congress even voted on. It has not been here since the beginning of the 14th Amendment, like people think. If I'm not mistaken, it was sometime around the 60s that the State Department, not Congress, this was never voted on, this is never said in the Constitution, it was like the State Department just changed their policy on it. And now we're told, oh, well, that's what the 14th Amendment has always meant. Not true. So,
and there's been case law on this at the appellate court level. The one case that's been ruled agrees with me on this. I believe the current Supreme Court agrees with me 6-3 on this. All we need is a president with the spine who, I go back to that first question, Abby, understands the Constitution. If I'm going to swear an oath to the Constitution, I better darn well have read it.
You suggested,
So there it is, folks. Let me know what you thought of the Vivek Ramaswamy CNN town hall if you did manage to watch the whole thing. Good as usual. I don't have much more to say. He's a very articulate guy. He, several times now, I think this is round 3 of him making that one anchor, I don't even know her name, but the CNN lady look stupid. And it's all very true. So with that said, folks, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. And until next time, Alpha Moves only. God bless. Have a very good day and peace.